Hello, 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 and welcome. My name is Rehab, Ebanks-Babb, and you are tapped in to Black Mental Health Matters. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know what time of day or night you're watching this, but if it's good morning, good morning. If it's good afternoon. And if it's good night, good night. So, I am joined by three very special guests today, and we're going to be discussing the psychosocial impacts and influences on Black men's mental health, specifically Black Caribbean men, Black African men, and Black African American men. And we'll be joined by three guests: one, Martin; two, Dr. Corey; and three, Dennis. We will be discussing the perspectives of each of these Black men and what they feel and think influences Black men's mental health. So, without further ado, I will bring on Martin. Martin, welcome to the Black Mental Health Matters platform. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. It's morning where I am, so good morning to you.
Yes, wonderful. And you say sunny where you are. Please tell our guests exactly where you are because it's very exciting to have our very first person from this country here.
Oh yes, so I'm joining you live from Sydney, Australia. We usually call ourselves as the continent down under. So yes.
Lovely, lovely. And Martin, please tell the guests a little bit about yourself before I bring on the other two gentlemen.
All right. So Martin Bakundana is my name, and I'm a chartered accountant by training and by profession.
Wonderful.
But I am a mental health advocate by passion. I've been
Yes.
doing mental health advocacy for the last nearly 3 years, but I've been practicing as a finance and accountant for nearly 15 years. So
Mm.
that's a bit about me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we'll get into the discussion about how you got into advocacy throughout the show. Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Martin. Next, we have Dr. Corey joining us on the stage. Welcome, Dr. Corey. Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters platform. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. And please introduce yourself to the guests, I guess, and
Uh,
the audience. Let them know where you are.
Most definitely. My name is Corey Jones. I am in the United States of America, currently residing in the state of Arizona. It is afternoon here. It's about 1:30 p.m. and it is 115 degrees. So I believe that is 44 Celsius,
Yeah.
depending on where you are. So, yeah, it's a lot of warm weather. It's bright and sunny, though. I am a school
Yes.
psychologist by profession. Um, I became a school psychologist about 8 years ago. And I
Mhm.
also teach court mandated classes from domestic violence to substance abuse to anger management courses.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful to have you here, Dr. Corey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely also be discussing a bit more about your profession and passions as well. And last but not least, we have Dennis Busulwa just joining us now. Welcome, Dennis, to the Black Mental Health Matters platform.
Yes,
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me. Um, yeah, as Rihanna said, my name is Dennis Busulwa. I'm a personal trainer by trade. Been in the fitness industry for 21 years now.
Ooh,
So I help people, body transformations and just not just changing their bodies, but helping them make those changes emotionally and mentally as well. I'm also a mentor for Manhood Academy Global, which is an organization that mentors young black boys who don't have fathers in their lives or positive male role models, and help them make that transition from boyhood to manhood. I'm based in London,
Beautiful.
England. Um, and I've been a mentor with Manhood Academy Global now for 4 years. But throughout my life, I've kind of mentored young people anyway through what I do, working with athletes and people I like.
Hmm.
lovely, lovely.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. This is going to be such a great discussion. I've actually been looking forward to it probably all week,
Hmm.
to be fair.
Yes.
And yeah, very happy to have you all here and
Hmm.
discussing something that has been of great importance to all of us globally
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
individually as a Black community. So, um, the topic of today is what are the psychosocial factors that influence African, Caribbean, and African American men? But before we jump into that discussion, I think it's very important for us as not only guests, but for the people that will be watching the show. What exactly are psychosocial factors understood to all of you? Because you're all in different, varying professions, but what does it mean to
Mhm.
you in your profession? I'm going to throw this out first to Dr. Corey.
Okay, absolutely. Well, for me, social factors are is actually it's a mixture of things, right? From social media influences, from what we see on TV to what our peers, to what are the people are our advocates, what
Mm,
society says is the norm, and when I say the norm is uh and I know we're going not to be long-winded, but you watch a movie or you watch a TV show for a young man and you see all of the superheroes and they all
mhm,
look a certain way, right? And it kind of
mhm,
conditions your mind to think that that's how I want to look. If I want to be powerful, if I want to be masculine, if I want to be all of these things,
mm,
that's the image I should be.
mm.
So that's what it means to me.
Thank you. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Thank you for that. Next, Martin, to you. What do psychosocial factors mean to you in your profession?
Thank you, Rihanna. And from my experience, from my background, so essentially, psychosocial factors are like the environment, where you grow up. So I'm originally from Uganda, and as
Mhm,
a Ugandan, there are a number of cultural factors, a number of social factors that
yes.
have shaped who I am today, how I see the world, how I
Mhm,
vision the world as a man, as a father, as a husband, and that definitely influences a lot of how I perceive certain things around me. Moving down to Sydney in Australia, certainly the perspective has changed because again the
mm,
environment is different. You're in this multicultural community, and so how you perceive certain things around relationships, around the networks that you have is certainly different. So those are some of the factors that I would consider as important in this
mm,
particular aspect. Yeah.
mm, I agree. I agree. I agree. Thank you very much for that. And Dennis, we've lost your visual, but it's back now.
Yeah, I'm
Wonderful.
back. Yeah, yeah. I was just changing. I was just changing settings. Sorry, it's a little bit dark in the background, but I was changing somewhere where I had a better signal.
Okay, that's
And
fine. That's
yeah,
fine. We need to make sure we don't drop out. We need all this good
a
richness.
hundred,
So,
100%, 100%. Yeah, 100%. So we're talking about psychosocial matters. First of all, Martin. Yes, I'm from Uganda as well. So you know,
Yeah.
yes. So I was born in Uganda and lived there till I was 12 years old, and then moved to the UK. So yeah. So when we talk about psychosocial, you know, issues that affect Black men, just like a little bit of what Martin mentioned on your environment,
mm,
how you're socialized
mhm,
as a Black man, and obviously the psychology behind that as well. Um, Being born in Africa, I spent the first 5 years of my life in an African village, and then moved to the city. So the
mhm,
so the social setting in the village was completely different, And then moving to the city, there was a different social setting, and then moving over to the United Kingdom, completely different social setting, moving to another culture where, as a Black man, I was in a minority.
mm,
Learning how to kind of navigate that environment, how to adapt to that environment as well. So there's a lot of things, taking on different cultures, which kind of highlights the difference between how you perceive, life in general and your your opinions, your morals, your values versus
Mm,
the morals, opinions, and values of this new culture that you're coming into, that you
mm,
need to either integrate into or assimilate. And yeah, so that's kind of how I see it. And as a black man, having to it's having to navigate all these different kind of social terrains, you know. Yeah, and these are the skills that we kind of work on at Manhood Academy with young black boys and teaching them how to handle themselves in different, in
social
different
settings.
settings. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think most importantly, it starts with which we're probably going to talk about is yeah, your history and your knowledge of self.
Mm,
You know,
absolutely. Shapes your
primarily,
identity, doesn't it?
primarily knowing who you are, so that way um, you can situate yourself. You know how to situate yourself within the environment that you find yourself in.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your definition. So I'm going to read out let's say, a dictionary definition from the journals on gerontology. I hope I pronounced that
Mhm.
right. But it
Yeah.
says black men exhibit the highest mortality rate and the worst health profile compared to other racial ethnic groups of men. They also explain that the health and well-being of black men is produced from an extremely intertwined set of relationships between individual, behavioral, social, and structural factors that have been endured across a life course. So, again, given the fact that we've got um, people here, all of you, all of us, in fact, mentor young people, and we understand the importance that this has from a very, very early age. It also moves on to say that the factors include historical dehumanization, oppression, violence against Black and African American people has evolved into present day racism, such as structural, institutional, and individual. And it cultivates a uniquely mistrustful and less affluent community experience. So, yeah. What's your thoughts on that definition so far? Because I feel like we've kind of tied a lot of it into each other. Um, and I think the just to kind of give scope on the tail end of that as well, it speaks about the inadequate access to and the delivery of healthcare services, how black men are on the receiving end of high police brutality, and the fetishization of this brutality in news media, the divisive political rhetoric, coupled with the increasing rates of separation, incarceration of Black men that have a part to play, poor educational outcomes, career prospects, identity politics. There's so much to
Yeah.
this. That also ties into the understanding and role and the building of masculinity, fatherhood, manhood,
Yeah.
and also how that ties into women of color's experience and how we
Absolutely.
also tie into the potential perpetuation of these these factors as well. So let's delve into this. Let's talk about it. What are your thoughts on what I've read out to you so far? I will throw this out to Dr. Corey.
Okay. My thoughts is, and like you said, it's a lot to unravel kind of there.
Mm,
But and I always go back to social for me, just because we're in that era of social media being as big as a juggernaut we probably have, And when you really just look at the things that social media kind of produces for Black men, right? It kind of teaches us. So, for example, and I do think things are changing, but for example, you would look at an athlete, the type of Black men that sometimes celebrated in the movie, right?
mm,
From especially in America, at one point in time, most Black men were they were either the pimp in the movie or the
mm,
hustler, or if they were a good man or a stand-up guy, then they'll come home. And, in the community,
mm,
they were a good stand-up guy, but they also will come home and be physically abusive to their wives.
mm,
So it just always paints the Black man in kind of a negative light. And as a child, when you watch those, or even as an adult when you watch that, we may not always realize it, but it definitely does something to our mental to see us on the screen
mm,
being, painted in such a light. It definitely paints a picture. And then with young ladies, it kind of paints a negative light for them too. Like, is this the type of person, or this is what I really want to deal with? And then it just goes back generations, I believe, in
Mm-hmm.
of a plot, or if not I don't want to say a plot, but an agenda, I would say,
Mm.
because I don't think some of these things are accidents. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
we're painted in this light by chance. I think that this was done purposely.
Yeah, yeah. Hence the structural aspects of it. Because
Hmm.
if the structures weren't there, then how would we continuously find these parallels across generations? So I agree with you. Martin, do you want to chime in on this
Mhm.
one?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a loaded kind of definition that you gave us there, and but I will
I
pick
try
it
to
up
throw it
from
all in.
yeah, I'll pick it up from the individual perspective, and that's what I want to kind of focus on, because coming from a background where you have, for example, challenges that you're dealing with as a community, right?
Mm,
You have different individuals facing the same exact difficult economic circumstances, for example.
mm-hmm,
But then how we navigate those challenges sometimes depends on our own individual mindset.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I've seen that, and so there is that aspect that, as an individual, how you respond to the challenges in your community depends, and in most cases influences how you perceive, those circumstances around you. So whereas we may all face those difficult challenges, how we appreciate those challenges and how we tackle them determines whether we succeed
mm,
or we fail.
mm-hmm,
So I have seen young men who give up because they
mm,
have faced insurmountable challenges. I have also seen young men who succeed because they said, "I cannot be defeated,"
mm-hmm,
and
Absolutely.
that's a mindset issue.
mm-hmm,
So whereas I agree that yes, there are social aspects to this, I also agree that there are individual aspects to this. I also believe there are family, genetic
mm-hmm.
explanations to this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I come from a family, for example, that has faced like serious challenges, but we have overcome them over time, and I
Mm-hmm.
will share more about that.
Yeah.
And so, whereas there are communal challenges at a society level, but at individual level, I still strongly believe that you can change your own circumstances by tapping into the potential that you have as a person, and then using the resources around you. These days, we have a very important resource called networking, right?
Mm,
Tapping into those people around you. You have Dennis here, who is a coach, right? Tap into those opportunities around you and
mm,
scale your opportunities rather
mm,
than saying, "Oh, I have those difficult circumstances, I can't deal with them." That's my perspective on this.
mm. That's interesting because I think, whilst I do agree, there is a lot of individual will and autonomy that needs to come from this. Um, the structures that have been put in place can somewhat diminish that mindset and that zeal to alleviate yourself from certain circumstances. But
Yeah.
Dennis, what's your thoughts? Because again, as a mindset and transformation coach, I'm sure you come through this all the time. The mental barriers that
Mhm.
people have to push through in order to become the best that they can be. What's your thoughts on the definition, I guess, that I gave?
Yeah, I guess my thoughts on that are just like I was saying before. Um, a lot of it um, in what I do as a coach and a body transformation coach is I try and understand um, the individual's unique problems and challenges as best as I can.
Mm-hmm,
Try and get an idea of their background. Where are you right now? How did you get there? Where do you want to get to? And so for us as black people, as black men, it's understanding um, getting a deeper understanding of exactly what our current situation is. You know, the better you understand your current situation, you know, the the better you're able to find effective and long lasting solutions to that situation or that problem. You know, so I feel that the effectiveness of a solution, of the solutions to our problem, is directly proportional to the depth of our understanding of, you know, where we're at the moment. And so it, for me, it had to it's had a lot to do with once again studying my own history, not just individual and family history, but history as general as a people. You know, my history as a Ugandan, my history as an East African, my history as an African, you know, and my history as a black man in the diaspora. You know, just kind of going out
Right.
different levels,
Yeah.
and then find out what mechanisms, you know, got us from where we once were, to here. You know, you know, delving into history historically, you know, as black people, we were, you know, kings and queens and rulers, you know, depending on how far back you want to go. So it's like, what's happened between then and now, you know, and gaining as deep an understanding of that as possible, you know. So that's my quest right now. That's the kind of journey that I'm on, and every day you know, I'm learning constantly, like you said, through networking. You know, you're and
Mm-hmm.
speaking to different people and gaining an understanding and their stories. You're learning every day. You know, today I was speaking to a gentleman at my gym that's from Mauritius, Indian Mauritian guy, and he, you know, and I was sharing certain things about him, about how Indians ended up in Mauritius in the first place because he's Indian, you know, you know, and like I said, the psychosocial issues that, you know, have affected his life and his father's life and this, that, and the other. So, and I pointed out certain things to him that kind of, you know, started to give him a better understanding of kind of how things were, yeah, where, you know, how things were the way that they were, you know. So, so yes, it was a loaded question, but yeah, in a nutshell, it's yeah, it's basically finding out the mechanisms that have got us to this point and why as well. You know, I came to England when I was 12 years old, having lived in Africa for, you know, you know, being born and raised in Africa. So I knew that I was coming to a foreign land. I wasn't expecting to be received with open arms, you know. So it's almost like when I faced certain prejudices and treatments, I wasn't really surprised. I would have been more surprised if I was facing those prejudices and treatments back home, where I call, you know, my motherland. You know, I would have been more surprised then. So yes, I
But
kind of understood. Go on.
I was just going to jump in and say, I guess that goes down to a lot of what you've all mentioned is the environment that you're in, the shift in environment. And again, you mentioned about being quite early on in your age when you came over here. um, Again, what I mentioned before about us all understanding the benefit of supporting young people with their self identity and that development from an early age. And I'm going to bring in Dr. Corey in this question here as well. How do you feel that the external impacts the internal and vice versa?
Well, most definitely the external is huge for the internal. One of the things that I see most, not only with kids I work with, but kids that in my family and me growing up, is
Mhm.
it's almost like it's not cool to be smart. It's not cool to be
Mm,
positive. It's not cool to do the right thing. You know, here in America, kids in from preschool to the third grade, they can all read on grade level, right? They're right where they're supposed to be. But then, for some reason, in the fourth grade, it changes, right?
mm,
Mm,
In the
mm.
fourth grade, it's more of a, oh, you're a nerd, you're a dork, you're a teacher's pet, right? So it's almost like we teach ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
to if you do this, you're not cool. Even me as a man, I'm
mm,
originally from Compton, California. Um, so even as a man, like I've heard oh man, you left the hood. You know, you don't do this, you don't do that. You know, it's almost like a negative for me to
You
want to
sold
uplift
out.
my life. Yeah, you sold
Mm.
out, you know, type of thing, you know, and that, but I always make sure that I give back to my community that I'm from and the community that I currently live in. However, it's still, you know, you hear these things. So it's definitely a thing. So then when you internalize things, you get to questioning, well, hell, I'm sorry, heck, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? I know for me growing up, there's a popular movie here in America. It's an old movie with Eddie Murphy called Beverly Hills Cop, right? And Beverly Hills Cop, right? So I
I
remember
know it
watching as a
well.
kid, and
Mm.
I wanted to be a cop because of Axel Foley. In my
Yeah,
mind, Eddie
yeah,
Murphy,
yeah.
like it made me want to do that. But internally, that's what I want. But how would that be received growing up in Compton,
Yeah,
California,
Yeah.
when I have
yeah,
cousins, friends, uncles who
yeah,
sell drugs or do that? It's almost like, what? You want to be
yeah.
a cop? They would
Yeah.
disown you, you know?
Yeah. They'll call you a op over here.
Yeah.
Hopo.
So you're right.
Yeah.
So it definitely plays a part.
Yeah,
Mm,
no, I really, really agree and I appreciate that. And, when it comes down to having that type of influence, it really can shape the life trajectory that you have, whether it is positive in respect of, okay, I want to alleviate myself from my circumstances, or negative
mm,
in ways of leaning into those stereotypes and structures that have been set up for us. So, um,
yeah.
Martin, I'm going to ask you a little bit about what your thoughts are on how the mind develops these types of associations. But from your perspective and the people that you've worked with, what do you see the barriers are um, within the settings that you're in, and from the perspective of someone in Sydney?
Yeah, thank you, Rena, for that. And what I will say quickly about that is that, again, I think I will connect it to what we mentioned earlier, the culture and yeah, the culture factors. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in my culture, there is this common saying that men don't cry.
Mm.
Now, men don't cry is not necessarily a bad thing, but what that does is that when a man experiences pain, they keep it deep inside,
Mm.
right? They don't reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't reach out for help, then you keep that all that pain deep inside you.
Mm.
And by the time the pain comes out, you don't know how it will come out, right?
Mm.
It may manifest in different ways. And one of the ways in which that pain actually manifests is in the violence that we see,
Mm.
but it's also in the high suicide rates that we see, right? So,
Mm,
for example, here in
mm,
Sydney, some of the statistics that we have are that 75% of the suicide cases that we see are from men as
Mm.
opposed to women. And the
mm,
reason is because men don't express their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
whereas women do. They reach out, they seek for help.
Mm.
Men want to be men. And because they want to be men, and that's how society has enabled them, that as a man, you don't cry, you don't, share your pain
mm,
publicly.
mm,
Mm.
That
mm.
forces men to, keep all that deep within. And by the time it comes out, the only option they have is, I can't take it anymore, I'm
Mm.
off,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so that's why personally I have decided to make it my life purpose to speak up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and put my vulnerabilities out there so that one
Mm-hmm.
other person can speak up and say, look, he has also come out and said he has faced this,
Mm.
Mm,
so I can also speak up. And in
yeah.
that way, we can actually bring down this, it's a
Stigma.
big issue. Yeah, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you probably are aware because of post-COVID effects that globally the numbers are skyrocketing.
Mm-hmm.
People are committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
People are really dealing with a lot of stuff, and these are not just black men only. It's across,
Yeah.
right? And so the reason why I think this particular affects Black men is because historically we have been raised to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
We have been raised to, to be the defender, right? You have to defend your woman. You're out in the evening with your woman, and if someone approaches her in a not so nice way, you have to speak up. You have to take action, right?
Yeah.
That's how we've been raised. And so that, in my own perspective, has contributed significantly to
Yeah.
the rising cases that we see. And then secondly, the system itself has been designed not to support men.
Mm-hmm.
You probably
Absolutely.
realize that there are many women activist organizations, right, defending the
Mm-hmm.
rights of women to speak up, and less organizations talking about the same for men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the boy
Yeah.
child has been boxed into a corner where they are not supposed to speak up, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are on the street and you get harassed by a woman and you raise an alarm, probably not so many people are going to come to your rescue, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But when the same happens to the sister, whether it's true or not, there will be, reaction, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of support. So that also, I think, is systemic. That there are structures and establishments that, and of course, it also is historical because women were marginalized initially, but now with the increasing focus on women, the men have been
Left behind.
left behind.
Yeah.
And so it's time to really say, like how it was with all, the Black Lives Matter. It's also time to say all lives matter, right? So the men also need to be supported because they need this support. That's my perspective on that, Rhiana.
Yeah, I totally agree that when it comes down to men needing to be central to the support, there is a lot of organizations and support out there for women. It's more socially acceptable for women to seek help than it is for men.
Yeah.
So, one thing that rings true to me is this popular saying of "I am my brother's keeper." And Dennis, this one's for you. So, when we use this slogan within our Black communities, and as you've mentioned, Martin, that if you was to see a man, say, acting out on the street or being abused on the street, people are less likely to go towards them and maybe offer help because of maybe the potential threat or the stigma or whatever it might be. Dennis, what does this mean in respect of the development of the brotherhood mindset, and how can we support our fellow Black men that are in need of support to kind of overcome this and alleviate these difficulties?
Yeah. Just like you said, there's this in at Manhood Academy, our motto, there's 4 lines to our motto. The first one is I am my brother's keeper.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is I am my sister's protector.
Mm-hmm.
The third is I am my community's provider. And the fourth one is we are our ancestors reincarnated. Now, going back to being your brother's keeper, it's like you just mentioned. Say, for example, if you saw a brother on the streets, or a man kind of going through what might seem like a mental health episode, or a lot of people will be reluctant to approach that man, because of fear, and but because of the fear that's being exhibited by people around him, that would cause that brother to that might cause a situation to escalate, or for him to feel even more alienated, and so on and so forth. So I think it's that fear. We have a fear of each other, especially Black men. We have a fear of each other. I remember growing up in East London. Even now, like, say you catch someone looking at you, you catch a brother looking at you, and there'll be this. It's almost you've got this battle of wills, like who's gonna look away first, and it's crazy. And then you see guys say, "What? What you looking at?" And from nowhere, something that was nothing becomes something. But
Yeah.
I developed this kind of trick where if my eyes, mine and another brother's eyes if we locked eyes or eyes met, I'd look at him for 2 seconds and then I'd nod my head, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy what the change suddenly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Their whole energy would change. They'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, it's me
Exactly.
trying to it's me trying to express like, yeah, yo, number one, brother, I see you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see you.
Mhm.
I recognize you, and I'm on your side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not your enemy.
Yeah. It
You
helps
know,
lower the
so
defense with kind eyes.
there you go. Yeah.
Right.
So black men are traumatized. Black people generally are traumatized, but black men are
Yeah.
traumatized because we're afraid. We're afraid of each other. Um, we've been taught, like Martin was kind of pointed out, not to express and talk.
Mm,
You know, black. Men don't cry or big boys don't cry.
mm,
And in
Mhm.
Manhood Academy, it's toxic masculinity. That's
Yeah.
toxic masculinity
Absolutely.
that
Exactly.
mm,
causes us not to express the pain and the challenges that we're going through, which, like you said, will kind of lead to deeper consequences or lead to that manifesting itself in either violence,
mhm,
disease, mental
mhm,
health.
mhm.
A lot of mental health. One of my sayings is, communication healed the nation. I'm a
Mm.
big talker. I'm all about talking. You know, and not just aimless talking, but speaking
Purposeful.
and purposeful talking and active listening. When you
Yeah.
speak long enough and allow someone to speak long enough, certain things will certain things will kind of come out that will give you an indication and an idea as to what their challenges are. And just for someone to feel listened to,
Mm.
goes a long way towards healing,
Yeah.
and helping them. So yeah, so I'm a big believer in that. So yeah, that's our first the first motto is I am my brother's keeper, just looking out for each other,
Yeah.
not just physically but emotionally and mentally,
Yeah.
spiritually. The second one is I'm my sister's protector,
Mm,
meaning that you don't, if she's a black woman, she is my sister.
mm, mm.
It doesn't matter whether we're biologically related or not. If I see a sister out there on the streets, she is my sister. I see anything happening or she's in trouble, as a black man, she's my sister. And I'm gonna, step up, or I'm gonna, show that support. Um,
Can I
so
jump in there real quick? Because
yes,
I
of
feel
course,
like
yeah, go ahead.
I'm again 1,000% in agreement, but I just want to be a bit of a devil's advocate here because
Yeah, of course,
you
yeah.
mentioned
Hmm.
toxic masculinity. Now,
Mhm.
Hmm.
something that we don't really speak about is toxic femininity
Oh
and
yeah,
how that
100%.
feeds into
Absolutely.
the perspective of
Hundred
what we're
percent.
talking about now. So I'm going to
Mm,
bring in Dr. Corey on this question because I know you do a lot of work
yeah.
around domestic violence
Mm,
and anger
Yeah.
management. And how does that feed into today's discussion? Because I think it's very important that emotional regulation, whether it's court mandated or not, but it helps with understanding the pressures from both sides, I guess. Yeah, talk to me. Talk to me.
Yes. It's definitely an issue. I think honestly, I think we did the toxic masculinity and feminine in the feminine energy to ourselves, right?
Mm,
So when you're younger, when we say big boys don't cry, who's telling us that? Our
mhm,
parents, our
mhm,
Yeah.
mothers, or hey, stop crying, acting like a little girl. All of those
mhm,
Yeah.
things. So you go
Yeah.
so long with that mindset, then you become an adult, and then your spouse is asking for more emotion from you. Well,
mhm,
hell, heck, I got 20, 30 years of being told not to show emotion.
mhm.
Now you want me to
You're
show
trying to flip it
emotion,
on the head.
Yeah.
right? It happens. So, and it's like what Martin was saying earlier as well, with when we hold and we bottle things in. It's like taking a balloon, and
Mhm,
every
mm,
time something bothers, we blow, we blow,
Yeah.
we blow.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
eventually, if we never talk and get it out, that balloon explodes,
This
and
is
Yeah.
that's
mm,
what seems to
exposure.
happen. A lot of the times when people are in my domestic violence courses, you see
mhm,
Mm,
someone explode. You see that no one is taught, and I know like you, everything is a first time for everyone, right? For the most part, if you're a first time spouse, a first time parent at some point, but
mm,
no one has not no one, but very few seems these days to have a good example of being a spouse, being a partner,
yeah.
having a unionship. So when it comes to the toxic masculinity and our counterparts and our sisters, it's
Mm.
almost like so like Dennis, when you were saying I'm my sister protector. Nowadays a woman here, you say that protector, I don't need your protecting. I just, and it's like sis, I don't mean no ill intent from it.
It's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got your back, or I'm here for you, I hold you here for me type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So it definitely plays a thing. And then different cultures and different regions of the country in America have their own ideal of what a spouse should be. So, and I see that a lot of times. You'll see someone marry someone from the West Coast in California and go to the South in the state like Alabama, and they marry each other. And oh well, my mom taught me to do this, my dad taught me to do this, and then
Yep.
it's feud in the home. And then because no one know how to regulate their emotions or even understand their emotions to know, am I really, to know, am I mad or am I actually sad, but I
That's
acted out
very
in a
true.
different way.
Yeah.
And next thing
Yeah.
you know, something is happening. One thing leads to another. It goes too far. Police knocking at your front door, and
Yeah.
you see all of these things. So
Yeah.
it's definitely it's a thing. And I am a father. I have daughters, and I am
Mm.
trying to teach them that it's okay to be in your feminine energy.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that it makes you weaker of a person or anything, but it's just simply okay.
Yeah.
And another, in closing for this question, I would say this: as men, we're looked at as weak when weak or vulnerable when we show our emotions, and that's what I think
Our,
is
our
slowly.
feminine side.
Yep, yep, and I do think it's slowly starting to change because
Yeah.
we have our athletes who regularly talk about going to see their therapist or
Yes.
going for a self-care day,
Yeah.
massage or even getting a manicure, So I
Or
do
even
think
a
it's
mental
slowly
health
starting.
day off work.
Yes, even a mental health day off work. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
for absolutely. So I hope I'm optimistic that this will continue to change,
Mm.
and I just hope to be a part of it and make a difference in this movement because it's something that definitely needs to happen.
I agree. I agree. And you mentioned that you're a
Mm.
father, Dr. Corey. So this question's now to Martin because I know you're a father to 4 sons. Now, I've only got
Mm.
one, and that's difficult.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've got one
Mm.
teenage son, and that in itself is difficult as a woman to
Mm.
know where to get the extra support and when to ask for the extra support. But
Mhm.
what lessons are you embedding in your sons to kind of avoid what Dr. Corey was saying? Like, we don't want those pressure pots to bust and we don't know what to do with the remnants, but we need people to be able to have these tools from an early age. So, what lessons are you embedding in your sons to help them navigate through life?
Yeah, thanks, Rihanna. Before I answer this question, though, I want to just add one small thing
Yeah,
to
by all
the previous
means.
question. Yeah. So I belong to a group of mental health advocates that are doing a lot of work back home in Uganda. And 2 weeks ago, we had a Twitter space conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and it was men, um, you know, talking about men issues.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And in that conversation, the one thing that I really picked was that men need space to cry.
Yes.
Mhm.
It was a 5-hour Twitter space conversation,
Wow.
and
Mm.
men cried.
Mm.
Yeah.
From the first speaker um, to the last speaker, men, confessing how they have been battered by their wives,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and they couldn't speak up about it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
someone makes a submission after they've listened to another person. They're like, "Oh, now I
Yes.
have the courage to speak up. I
There
Yeah.
you
can
go. That's it.
I,
Yeah.
I can say this thing out. I know I'm
Perfect.
not
Yeah.
going to be judged,
Yeah.
right?"
Mm.
So there is that, and I really love the way Twitter Spaces operate because they don't
Mm.
have like these videos we are having, so people don't want don't feel
Yeah.
judged, right?
Mm.
They really are beginning to speak up. And on that forum, we had police officers, psychologists, psychiatrists
Mm.
who really offered professional help.
It's
Uh,
powerful.
but, but my main point is that men have kept this, you know, traumatic experiences themselves because of the stigma around it, and it's time to speak up. It's
Yeah.
time to speak up. So, yeah, so I thought I should
100%.
put it out there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Now
you.
And
to
the
your
fun.
question.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. To your question. Yeah, I do have four very wonderful sons. My first son is aged 13, and then my last is aged 6. So I did a pretty good job very fast sometime. And thanks to my wonderful wife, she is the one looking after them right now because they don't live with me. They are back in Uganda.
Mm,
Mm.
Um, but one thing that I really want to emphasize in response to your question is that I have tried my best to be a present father for them.
mm, mhm,
Um, I am present in their life, as in actively present.
mm,
Uh, and so the advice I want to give, especially for aspiring fathers or those who are already fathers, I think I have about 5 or 6 points, if you could allow me.
I will allow
Now,
you.
thank you. Now, the first one is be their best friend.
Mm,
One thing that I've learned through relating with my sons is that they want to talk to you as their best friend, not as their father, but
mm,
as their best friend. So they can freely share with you what they're experiencing, the pains they're having.
mm,
And as long as they are comfortable that when they share with you, you discuss with them and resolve whatever it is they're dealing with, they will open up to you.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
That's the first point.
mhm,
Mm. Mm.
The second one is be their role model.
mm,
Be that father figure that they would want to see in themselves so that they aspire to
Mm.
be like you
yeah.
when they grow up, right? In other words, the things you do, not the things you say, matter,
Yes. It's
right?
very
Mhm.
true.
Yeah, so that's the second thing. The third thing is inspire them.
Mm,
Now, inspiring these young men takes a lot of, again, what you do and not what you say necessarily. And I'll give a very personal story here. So my second born was kind of the timid person. I don't want to speak in public, that kind of
mhm, mhm,
person. And so I thought, okay, he needs a bit of support, right?
mm,
So at their school, they were running prefectorial campaigns. You know, they
mhm,
were
Mm.
a
Mhm.
prefect team, and I kind of, jokingly, talked to him and said, "Would you consider running for a prefectorial position?"
mhm.
And he had never considered it, but he took up the challenge.
Amazing.
Mm.
I
Mm.
was shocked that by the next morning he already had his campaign statement, and he
Oh,
said that,
wow.
Are you ready to listen to it?" I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And for the next 2 weeks, that's all he could talk about.
Mm,
Mm. Mm.
And obviously, I supported him. Um,
Mm.
and to cut the long story short, he actually went through the campaign and scored the highest percentage of
Mm.
any candidate,
Nice.
Mm.
right?
amazing.
And he just loves doing it now. To date, I still discuss with my wife how he transformed in just
Yes.
one
Mm,
small.
Mm.
And so that's the power of inspiration.
Yeah.
He
absolutely.
took
That's
the
it. That's
challenge
it.
and he picked it up, and he's now absolutely motivated. He loves what he does, right? Um, the number four
Can I
is
just say before you move on to number 4, that's such a beautiful example of the power of
mhm,
inspiration and leadership as well.
100.
Because
100%. Yeah.
if you had pigeonholed him into what you knew him to be, he wouldn't have been able to
yeah,
find the courage and strength and skills to
yeah,
be able
Mm.
to step out of himself and alleviate
Mm.
himself from that previous mindset that
Yeah.
he was in. So
Yeah.
well done to you and your wife and everyone else that
Yeah.
supported him on that journey.
And you showing him that belief, that you had belief
Exactly.
in
Self
him that he could
belief.
do it. You even suggesting that he should do it showed him that you believed in him, and
Yes.
showing him that self-belief is what kind of fueled, inspired and fueled him to go for it. So yeah, that's
It
very,
Exactly.
changed
very,
his own
very
belief
powerful.
system.
That's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, continue. Number 4 and then number 5.
Yeah. Thank you. So number 4, and this is my personal favorite, is teach them about money.
Mm.
Mm,
Um, one of the
mm,
things, one of the challenges I faced earlier on as a dad was that you have all these requests. Daddy buy for me this, daddy buy for me this toy, daddy buy for me this PS4, this and that, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I struggled as a dad trying to fulfill those needs, those
Mm.
requirements, because you want to be a good dad, you want to be there, give them what they want, right? Then I realized that there is a better way to do it, and so I started a small project for them where
Mm.
I would pay them for the work that they do. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah.
reward them. So ordinarily think house chores like washing your car,
Mm.
doing
Mm-hmm.
dishes,
Yeah.
mowing the lawn, things that
Mm-hmm.
ordinarily you would pay for, right?
Mm. Mm.
I
Yeah.
would encourage them to do those tasks and I would pay them,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
And then they would save that money, right?
Mm.
So I would tell them, okay, fine. If you need to buy a toy, you need to save up, right?
Mm.
So they would actually work knowing that they want to buy that toy and they would save up and they would have a target. Then they would come to you and say, Daddy, I want to wash your car, right?
Mm.
I'm like, okay, go ahead, wash it. And then I'd pay them. So over
Mm-hmm.
time, it has really worked. So everyone has their own bank account and they are actively monitoring how much money is there. They will be asking me how much money is there, Daddy, right?
Mm.
Mm. Amazing.
And so that's something that I would encourage other parents to do as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Mm.
absolutely.
Number 5 is to teach them respect. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Respect for themselves, but also respect for others.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, but more importantly, and this is very, very important, is teaching these boys to respect women because
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and this comes from how you treat your own woman. So how I talk to my wife, how I treat my wife, how I, we might have arguments, right? It
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
happens, but we don't have those arguments in front of the boys.
Mm.
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 We go to our space where we have our arguments and then we resolve them there. So they grow up knowing that as a man, you have to treat your wife in this way. You have
Mm.
to treat a woman with respect, and so you have to treat everyone else with respect. Another
Yeah.
quick example is our driving manners, let's say on the road. You know, do you scream at the person who scratches your car? Do you use those swearing words? Again, all those for me teach your sons how better to deal with society
Mm. Mm.
with respect. So that's the number 5. And then there's a bonus that I want to throw in there, which is number 6. And that is teaching your boys that grades are important, but skills are more important.
Mm.
So
Absolutely.
I am one person who believes that grades are important, but skills are more important than grades.
Mm. Mm.
And so I do not hound my son for not getting 98%. I encourage him to get 98%, 99%.
Yeah.
But I acknowledge that if he doesn't get 98%, it's probably because he has his interest in something else.
Mm.
And I encourage him and support him to pursue that. So it's important, yes, to encourage them that do well in school, but it's also more important to tell them that it's what you do with what you know that matters, not just what you know.
I
Absolutely.
agree. I agree. And thank you for the bonus as well, because I think that one's definitely so important because it can really build a misunderstanding between practical skills, technical skills, and intellect. And I'm a big believer in putting theory to knowledge. You can go and read all the
Yeah.
books, get all the qualifications in the world, but it's how you apply it to real life
Yep.
and real worlds that counts. And
Yeah.
particularly from young ages where you're instilling this is all part and parcel of their identity development. So, Dr.
Mhm.
Corey, um,
Hmm.
in your opinion, where do you think some of the jaded identity development can come from if people aren't instilling these types of knowledge and practices in their children?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I want to say that I know in America, a lot of these programs, right? Like if you're in school and you got wood shop and you
Mm,
got culinary or cosmetology, those programs are seen to gone away in public schools, and people
mm,
say it's due to funding or lack of funding. And a lot of kids
okay.
seem to have challenges with the academics. And I try to tell people exactly like you said, Martin. It's okay. Everybody not gonna be a straight A student,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and to get tell and and to push the you have to get great grades, you have to go to college, and that's what success looks like for some, but not for
Mm,
all.
mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
There's mechanics that make amazing money,
mm-hmm.
and without school loan debt, I want to
Yeah.
add to, so there's different ways, but definitely Eric Erickson, he has the psychological developmental theory, and he
Yes.
has 8 different stages.
Yes.
And in those 8 stages, there's two that I find more significant probably than the others. And
Mm-hmm,
the first one is the fourth stage, and that's around the 5 years old to 12-year-old mark. And
mm-hmm,
it's industry versus and feelings of being inferior. And
yes.
what that is, that's the time where we kind of discover and realize that we're different than everyone else, right? That's
Mm,
when it's important for us to have that positive recognition, because it kind of it breeds us to be harder working, right? We getting that positive
mm,
feedback versus when we're getting negative feedback at that time, it kind of kills our motivation, right?
mm,
Our We have a lack of motivation because everything we do seems to be so wrong, and that's why I highly encourage parents to not be as hard on them as kids. Your son come or daughter comes home with a C, it's not the end of the world.
yeah.
Everyone wants the honor roll student and put the bumper sticker on their car. My child made honor roll. That is you don't have to, And
Yeah.
then and like you said, Martin, kids excel at what they're interested in,
Yeah.
right? So not every kid. I wasn't as interested in algebra either,
Mm,
you know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So but I might be interested in, I don't know, building air conditioning. I don't know, but I think we should funnel our kids towards our passion. The other
yeah.
one though is the very next one on is his fifth developmental stage, and that's at that age of 12 to 18 years old, right? And it's identity and role confusion.
Mm,
And
mm,
this is so important, right? This guy, Eric Erickson, he actually coined the phase identity crisis. And this is the development stage where that comes from,
mm, mm,
because it's where we're learning that everyone has different societal roles, right? And
mm-hmm,
then there's parents, there's children, there's teachers, there's students, all of these different things. And I try to encourage parents at this stage, it's important to let them kind of discover and experience what they want to be, who they
mm,
want to become. Because a lot of times, this is where parents push their own views, their
mm-hmm,
own dreams or beliefs onto a student or to a child,
mm-hmm,
um, adolescent. And this is when the child becomes unmotivated.
mm,
Push their kids away and kind of feel lost and feel like a failure if they don't live up to what mom and dad said success is.
yeah.
And so much, and I mean, we see it so much, and not only in academics, but we see it in sports. I grew up playing
Mm,
sports since I was 4 years old. Every year of my life, I played sports until I couldn't anymore. And
mm,
I honestly, after college, about 2 years removed, I went through a depression because that's all I knew how to do. All I knew
mm,
how to do in my whole life was play sports. So I felt like a failure when that career couldn't continue. And
yeah.
then the NFL, the American football, they do a great job of trying to find careers for retired athletes, because a
Mm,
lot of them, once it's all over, they don't know what to do.
yeah.
And so feelings of depression and things like that it starts to form as well. So it's definitely important, though. Those two, I would say, is the industry versus feelings of inferiority. I mean,
Mm.
and being feeling inferior, and identity and role confusion. Those are probably the two biggest ones.
Thank you for the knowledge, Dr. Corey. Honestly, and it's so interesting to know that it's not just like, sometimes when you see these things happening, it's like, okay, it's not all in my head. This is actually happening.
Right.
And where you've mentioned about the repeal of funding for um like industry, like practical skills, I find it's somewhat a reverse over here, because I was the girl that was in like DT and woodshop, as you'd call it in America. I
Hmm.
was in the catering
Hmm.
class. I was that practical person. I wasn't book savvy. I really, really wasn't. It really was a difficult phase for me. But I know Dennis, like personally, we've known each other for a very long time. He'd called me a bookworm, but I've had to really work at that, and I find that just having the interplay between academia, creativity, and passion really can drive someone forward. So I'm going to kind of throw out some final questions for you all, because this has been a really lucrative and beautiful discussion. But I just want to ask, from your perspective, there's been a lot of public health initiatives and agendas around men's health, whether it be physical or mental. Like a couple of weeks ago, we just had men's health month.
Hmm.
But in your opinion, and this is to anyone that wants to answer, um, what works well and what is
Yeah.
missing? What do we need?
Um, I think I'll go back to just what you just touched on and what Dr. Corey touched on in regards to a lot of um, lessons being taken out of schools. So Dr. Umar Johnson kind of touches on that a lot, in that a lot of practical courses being taken out of schools, like you said, auto shop, carpentry and all of this, that will enable. And if you went back to, say, if you go back to this before, civil rights era or in the 60s and even before that, um, there were a lot of black men earning really good money,
Hmm.
from being a carpenter, being an electrician, a mechanic, or an engineer. And because not everybody is necessarily academic, but once again, it's just that agenda to kind of funnel everyone down the same kind of
Yeah.
path, and those that don't fall in or don't align with that feel marginalized, and then end up doing other things,
Mm.
Absolutely.
end up on the streets or doing this, that, and the other to make ends meet or to earn a decent living. They feel that the only way they can earn a decent living is by possibly doing something that's you know not very savory, because those options are taken, because those options are taken off the table for them.
Yeah.
And one of the businesses that my family is involved in is property maintenance and construction and things like that. And you see how much money these builders, guys that work in construction make. It's crazy.
Mm.
Yes.
Construction makes the world go round, but it is not glorified, in
Yeah.
society or even in the community. I remember growing up and looking at builders and painter decorators, and I'm thinking, man, that's what you do when you got no other options. You
Right.
go into construction, when all else fails, you go and work construction, or you go and do this, that, and the other. Yet, a lot of the richest people in the world come from that background.
Mhm.
So it's interesting, the agenda. Like I said, I'm a bit of a conspiracy. Well, they call it conspiracy theorist, but I like to read between the lines and see what's really
Sometimes
going on.
it's the
I'm not.
truth.
Yep. It is what it is. Yep.
Yeah,
Say what
it
it
is
is.
what it is, and what's really happening. So when you look at the black community, a lot of black men have had a lot of things taken away um,
Mm.
from them in terms of what they can do. So their
Mhm.
options have been limited, and then you got the media and society pushing this image of what a man should be and what
Mhm.
success is, and this,
Hmm.
that, and the other, through the media, through music, through film, and so a lot of black men feel that if they aren't doing this or making this amount of money and this, that, and the other, they're failures. And then the same thing's being pushed to the women. If your man
Right.
ain't doing this for you, if he ain't doing that for you, and this, that, and the other. So it's almost like
Absolutely.
what you get happening in society is like the disempowerment of men,
Yeah.
and then you're getting the empowerment of women, which is causing that imbalance and that divide
Yeah.
and it's breaking up families. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
crazy. Earlier we mentioned Black Lives Matter, BLM, and
Mhm.
when you look at Black Lives Matter, I read their manifesto. I read the Black Lives Matter manifesto. There was nothing in there for straight black men. Nothing. There was
Mm.
nothing in it for black men.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
it's a foundation, an organization that's that was run by three sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something in there for every LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
Nothing in there for straight men.
Mm.
There's
Mhm.
something there for straight females. Nothing in there for straight men. So you're thinking, why? So there's got
Yeah.
to be an agenda there somewhere. Yes,
Yep.
but kind of going on to and that's what I'm saying. It's just recognizing and seeing exactly what's up.
Mm.
Catching the play, recognizing the play. Corey. So you come from a sporting background. So
Mhm.
in American football, every team has 50 different plays that they have to
Mhm.
memorize. Every quarterback has to memorize 50 different plays. So once if you clock what the other team's play is trying to do, you then put yourself in a position where you can outmaneuver them,
Absolutely.
or you can so yeah, it's just and a lot of what we do at Manhood Academy is just letting the boys that we work with, just making them aware. Just be aware of what's happening. You don't have to react to it. You just be aware of what's really
Mm.
happening and where certain traps are being set for you, to kind
Mm.
of
Absolutely.
react in a certain way, and this, that, and the other. So just be aware of that so you can kind of maneuver. Once again, it's about it's about maneuvering, a
It
certain
is.
kind of it's that terrain, maneuvering that terrain and having the knowledge, the information, and the wisdom to do that, and having the support to be able to do that, and knowing when to uh the young people over here use the phrase drawn out. When you get
Mm.
drawn out, when you get um yeah, getting drawn out, or being what's the word I'm looking for? um uh no, it's gone. But yeah, just being drawn out and being pulled out of your center, by somebody else,
Mhm.
so just recognizing the game, um
Mm.
and just knowing exactly, it's knowing what your part is within that game, knowing who you are ideally, but knowing what your part is in that game, and knowing what to do at any given point in time,
Yeah.
and that's basically what we try to equip the young masters that we work with as much as possible. It's all about self mastery,
Yeah.
and like I said, if you know who you are, nobody else is. If you don't know who you are, people will tell you who you are. So
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. So yeah. So sorry, I kind of went off on a little bit of a
no, it's
tangent
okay.
there.
I was
No,
just
you're
trying
fine.
to kind of holistically give a self
Yeah.
mastery and the centralization of black men's voices is what's missing from public
Mm.
health agendas. That's what
Yep.
I've
Mm.
heard from what
Hmm.
you've said.
Hmm.
I might, yeah, got it
It's,
on the
yeah,
poll.
it's missing from, it's missing from public health agendas, mainly because we got to look at the system. And in the 90s, the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the phrase institutional racism,
Mm,
started coming up a lot.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
I remember being at university when I first heard the phrase institutionalized racism, and I kind of understood it. It's and to me, it was almost like prejudices and racism that's kind of inbuilt or built right within right into a fabric of a particular society.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When the very foundations of Western society were being laid and created, you know, black people black people as a people, they weren't being laid for us.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
These things
Right.
weren't being laid down for us. So why are you then surprised that the system does not work, is not working in your favor? The
Yeah.
system wasn't created for you. It wasn't
Yeah.
created
Absolutely.
by you. It wasn't created by
It's
you. It
Absolutely.
meant to
wasn't
work
created for
against
you.
us.
Yeah. So why are you even surprised? And so, like I said, what we work a lot to do is to switch young black men onto this, but not to make them paranoid or to make them, give them a victim mentality, but just to show them, just know the game that you're playing. Know the game, that know what you're up against. So then that way you know exactly how to maneuver. But it starts with doing that. Otherwise, you try as you might, or that you try different things and become frustrated and not understand why things aren't working out for you. So it's that, it's things are set against us in a certain way. It doesn't mean that we can't succeed and we can't overcome, but understand where you're standing to begin with, or understand where what your starting point is, so that way you kind of know exactly how to plot your route, going
Thank you,
forward.
Dennis. Much
Absolutely.
appreciated.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Corey,
Can I
Martin?
come in? Yeah.
Yes,
I
please
just
do.
Of
wanted
course.
to
Go.
come in and add on to what Dennis just mentioned. I think a lot of what we see is really tied to our education system. Personally, looking back at where I come from and what we have been taught in schools is, for you to be successful, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be an engineer, you need to be this hot shot.
You need to be an accountant, you need to be a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And at the height of it, you need to be a professor. But looking seriously about it, it's not about that, right? It's not about that, because you can be as successful even when you don't do any of those, right?
Yes.
In my organization, I have a very brilliant young man. He has not done even university, but the kind of amazing work that he does has been from his experience.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
The people that have masters, the people that have all these degrees, don't do as good a job as he does, because he has used his experience, and he has also used his adaptability, to the different circumstances, to actually understand that to do a good job, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't need to go in a lecture room to learn some of these things. Yes, we need that knowledge, but how do we use that knowledge?
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring that quickly to the experience here in Sydney, because when I moved down to Sydney, one of the first things that I noticed was that the so-called blue-collar jobs are actually more treasured here than the white-collar jobs.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. So the guys that work in the construction industry, the bricklayers, the guys that do the electrical installation, the guys that do the plumbing work, they are the most sought out, because their work is highly valued, right? And it's highly paid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with your lock and you need to fix it, before you call, the guy that does that, you need $150 minimum.
Call out charge.
Yeah. Now, the white collar jobs don't have that kind of assurance, right? So the guys who drive the most expensive cars on Sydney roads are actually the guys that do that kind of work.
That's it.
Now, that's not the experience.
And they have the most freedom as well. The most job satisfaction. The most job satisfaction. Yeah.
Because they work within their time, within their means, and they do an amazing job. Now, those of us who are into these white collar jobs, working 8 to 5, yes, we earn a decent amount, but because of the kind of the environment in which we work, and we end up more stressed. Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
And we don't enjoy the work itself.
High
So this
burnout
whole
rate.
notion,
Very high.
notion
Agree.
that for you to be successful, you have to do this amazing course and be an engineer or an accountant. I'm an accountant. I mean, it's a fallacy, and that needs to be demystified.
100%. 100%.
And young men and young women need to be told that you can be the best at what you do as long as you follow your passion and still be
100%.
very, very successful.
Yeah.
100%. It depends on your natural. Yeah, it depends on your natural giftings. And as I have 2 daughters, my eldest daughter is 24, and her younger sister is 18. And and even in what I do as a personal trainer and and body transformation coach and things like that, is trying to gauge what people's natural giftings are, what their natural
Yeah.
talents are. What is it that you're naturally good at? What's the one
Mm,
thing that you could get up and do every single day of the week
Yeah.
and never get bored, and never and you enjoy it, and things like that. And how can
Yeah.
you get someone to pay you to do that? What's
mm-hmm.
your
Absolutely.
what do you find yourself gravitating towards? And okay, cool, can you find out a way that you can create a career out of that? And that's
Yeah.
and I've helped clients that I'm working with,
Mhm.
change jobs and change
Yeah.
careers and leave certain relationships, and it's crazy. So, and I do the same thing because my two daughters are very different. My eldest daughter is very, she's quite intellectual. She was very academic, and a thinker. And
Mhm.
my younger daughter is very, she's very practical. She's a
Mm,
lot more vocational, a lot more practical, but she's a go-getter. I see that about her as well. She's quite bold, and
mm,
so I don't try and compare the two of them.
Mhm.
I try
Yeah.
and, this is your strength, this is your area of strength, and go for that. This is your area of strength, and go for that, and
mm,
go crazy. But also the other thing that we need to remind ourselves is, when you look back in African history, when you look back at black history and African history, we were master architects and master builders.
Absolutely.
mm.
So it's not your doctors, and it's not your professors and your accountants that built
Yeah.
We
built the
build our
pyramids,
society.
and yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
built our society and all these great things, and taught the West how to taught the West about plumbing, and
Mm,
and irrigation, and all of these things.
mm,
These were highly skilled master builders and master
Yeah.
masons that did this, and that's where we stem. Some of the greatest cities in Africa, you're going back to Timbuktu and Mali, and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
this. This is
Absolutely.
before you
Yeah.
even come to Egypt and Memphis and all
Mhm.
the,
yeah.
and the pyramids, and all of these structures across, not just in Africa but right across the planet,
Mm,
Yeah.
that were
Crazy.
constructed by black people. These were
mm,
very skilled and highly skilled, people with their hands. It
yeah.
took a lot of skill to be able to do that. Don't get me wrong. You had the architects, you had the accountants, because everything has a budget, and this, that, and the other. What's the manpower do we need, and this, that, and the other. But these weren't the jobs that were just coveted and made more
Right.
important than other jobs.
Yeah.
And you see it in Western society now, where the guy that cleans the rubbish on the streets doesn't get anywhere near as much as the doctor or the nurses who are doing in the hospitals, who are doing a practical work or one-to-one with the patients, and calming patients and reassuring patients, get paid less than a doctor who just comes and spends 5 minutes
Sign it.
with this patient, right? Yeah, signs this and gets out of there, and you think
Mm,
to yourself, that
Right.
just does not make sense.
mm.
So and
So
then
let
you
me
realize.
ask you. I'm going to cut in here.
Hmm,
Sorry. Let
sure,
me ask
sure.
you. So what education is needed for us as communities to
Hmm.
improve these outcomes, these psychosocial outcomes for Black men across Africa, across the Caribbean, Black British
Hmm.
men and Black African American men? How can we improve our education on what is needed for us to be not only sustainable but improve and utilize our experience?
Mm. I'd say
I,
I'll go back to knowledge of self. Sorry to cut you, Dr.
oh no,
Corey.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I say I'll go back to knowledge of self. Know who you are first.
Mm,
Yeah.
Know who you are, and know the situation that you're in. And
mm,
based on the situation that you're in as a people, what do you need?
mm,
If you
mm.
don't know the
Absolutely.
situation that you're in, you're not going to know what you're going to need to go forward. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. As a people, as a community, to move forward, what are we going to need? Do we need more lawyers? Do we need more teachers? Do we need more accountants? Do we need
Mm,
builders? What is it that we need based on the situation that we're in? And that way we'll know exactly what area to educate ourselves in, and what area to really focus in,
mm,
in order to kind of lift us up out of where we are and forge forward. But for me, um, self identity, you know, um, is top of that agenda and top of that scale in regards to helping with your self esteem, self confidence, and this, that, and the
yeah.
other, which then fuels you put forging ahead and going for these careers and pushing through in these different areas. But I think it starts with knowledge of self. Know yourself
Wonderful.
first, and then you know where to go from there. But yeah,
Thank
go
you.
on, Dr. Cora. Sorry.
Yes,
Oh no,
please
oh no, no
continue.
worries. I was just gonna
Mm.
and everything he said, you said that all beautifully, Dennis, because I completely agree. I also think that it's important for us to realize that education is not a sheet of paper, right?
Yes.
Just because like we don't need to graduate. Like the guy that Eric Erickson that developed the psychosocial developmental theory, he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
attend. He did no college degree.
Mm-hmm.
None, but
Yeah.
his work is still significant today. You know,
Yeah.
even from like an
Mm,
Albert Einstein, and I believe this is an Albert
mm,
Einstein quote when he says that
mm.
everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by his ability to
Yeah.
climb a
Ability
tree,
to climb a
that
tree.
tree
Exactly. Yeah.
he will
Yeah.
go his entire life believing he's stupid.
Is a
That
Yeah.
is
failure.
so
Yeah.
yes, and that is the truth. You know, we
Yeah.
Yeah.
all have our own things. I
Yeah.
definitely think we need to get back to the skills. I
Yeah.
believe, like you said, Martin, education is important. But if you can't mobilize education, if you can't put it to work, then what use is it? You know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I definitely think that is the way, and also just more people like us who's willing to speak up. I think that a lot of
Yes.
people in our world they get in trouble, quote so to speak, or they have some type of consequence, negative consequence for saying too much. But what
Mm.
Mhm.
about people that say too little?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the people that should be have some consequences. Like we
Yeah.
have to speak up. You know, we have
Yeah.
to stand up,
Mhm.
speak
Mhm.
up, be examples. You
Yeah.
know, and like you said, Dennis, the system, the structure wasn't built for us. So if we don't start building our own systems and structures and inviting
That's
our
it.
youth in, then nothing's gonna change. So
Mm.
Mhm.
that's what I think needs to happen.
Thank you, Dr.
Mm,
Yeah.
Corey. And
mm.
Mhm.
Martin, last but not least, what do you think
Yes.
is
Yes.
required? What education is required for us?
Yeah, I actually just want to pick it up from what Dr. Corey just said, and just give you a few examples. Look at
Mm-hmm.
the founders of Google. I mean, no college degree. Look at
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
the late Steve Jobs, no college degree.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if you actually look at the richest men and women in the world,
Mhm.
it's not the college degree that actually,
Right.
you know, put them there. If you
Mm.
look at the a list of all the professors that we know across the world, you would struggle to find one who is uh, wealthy. I should say,
Mhm.
Mm.
and
Mhm.
why
Mhm.
is that, right? So it's
Yeah.
really not
Absolutely.
not the knowledge that you have in your head that matters. It is how you
Mm.
use the knowledge that you have
That
that
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And I'll just share this personal experience. I am in my final year of my PhD, and I'm thinking about submitting my thesis. But I was just having a chat with my brother the other day, and I was telling him, by the way, all the knowledge that I needed in my PhD program, I already have it. So even if I don't submit and
Mhm.
get the paper, I
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
everything that I
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
succeed,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so
You
it's
better
not,
submit
yeah.
it though.
I have to, yeah.
You didn't spend all that time writing it, not to submit it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mm.
definitely do that. But my point is that
Mm.
ultimately, what matters is how you use the knowledge that
Mm-hmm.
you
That you
have.
have. Mm.
And maybe one last thing that I want to say, which is connected to what Dennis was saying, is that um, these days employers are looking more for employees, and I want to just focus on
Mhm.
that, who are
Mhm.
emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Emotionally intelligent, and
Yeah.
there's now
Mm.
another aspect actually that is coming up, which is social intelligence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
they are moving away from this, the common IQ.
Intellectual. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and moving more on social intelligence and
Mhm.
emotional intelligence. Why? Because a lot of work that we do now requires those two skill sets, rather
Yes.
Mhm.
than the how much and the cram work that we are used to, and
That's
go
it.
and
Yeah.
put all
Yeah.
that stuff there,
Mm.
right? But
Mm.
how can you withstand societal challenges? How do you deal with
Mhm.
a difficult boss? How do you deal with a difficult colleague?
Mm.
How do you
Yeah.
deal with a difficult
Mm.
customer? Those are the
Mm.
skills that we need. And so
Yeah.
if our education system can be fine-tuned to incorporate some of those things, I think
Mm-hmm.
go a great way in dealing with some of these issues.
That's it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I
Um.
completely agree.
Yeah.
Um,
Just to. I know we.
yeah, you can throw in your last comment.
Just to throw in my last comment. Um. I said the Western educational system. Like I said, it's a program. You know, it's a
Hmm.
program that programs you to think in a certain way. Programs you to be more analytical. And less practical. It will teach you to be able to find more problems, to be able to find problems more than you can find solutions for problems. You know,
Solutions.
it's
Hmm.
Yeah.
very, analytical in nature. But we need to also understand as Black people that the way that we're taught now, the Western education, isn't how we were educated before.
Yeah.
If you go back to thousands of years ago, even hundreds of years ago in the village, all the children were educated by elders, wise
Hmm.
Yeah.
people. These were teachers.
Exactly.
These were people that
Yeah.
were naturally gifted to be teachers. These were the people that were elected to be teachers, not the person that has done a teaching degree and has got the best qualification. These were people that were just innately gifted at teaching and being able to, pass on knowledge and stories and this, that, and the other. And these were the people that, the children sat around and sat at the feet of and learned,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and then so on and so forth. Going back to that, also when it came to the way that we wrote and the way that we assimilated information and took on information, we used to write in hieroglyphs or characters. We didn't write in single words and the alphabet that we use.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
you're probably seeing um, even movies or documentaries where an archaeologist or someone goes into a cave or tomb, and there's hieroglyphs on the walls,
Yeah.
and they read first of all, they read from right to left, not left to right,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know and they're able to almost read the equivalent, information of the equivalent of a 1,000-page book, yeah,
Hmm.
on one wall, because they're reading symbols and
Yeah.
interpreting those symbols, and
Yeah.
therefore able to, take in that knowledge. So the way
Yeah.
that we read and the way that we write and the way that we learn has been slowed down. Number one, we are because of the alphabet, the English alphabet, or the Roman alphabet, and
Hmm.
also by being forced and taught to read from right to left to right as opposed to right to left. If you look at
Mm.
certain cultures, some of the most intelligent cultures, yeah, they read from right to left. Arabic is read from right to left. Japanese, right to left. The Chinese, who are some of the smartest people on the planet, use characters. That way
Mm.
they're able to ingest information really quickly and interpret information really quickly because everything is in characters and this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
Whereas in the people in the West, or people that are stuck on the Roman kind of information, learning and this, that, and the other, are still trying to spell words and
Mm.
this, that, and the other. And it's taking you, like I said, you write a thesis. How many words is your thesis, Martin?
About 280 pages.
Wow.
Pages.
Okay.
Yeah,
Look at
pages.
that. Yeah. And how long is it going to take you to type those words? How long is it going to take someone to read
God.
that information and then ingest that information? You hear the saying, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in the book.
Write
Yeah.
it down.
But
Yep.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but see, I I kind of got the reason, things are hidden in books because a lot of black people innately struggle with and struggle with reading and writing the English way.
Mm.
Yeah, you hear a lot of young black boys and young people having dyslexia or not
Hmm.
being able
Hmm.
to, because that's not the natural way
It's
that
not
we're supposed
natural.
to.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
I
natural to
I
us.
think
So
a lot
some
of
of us
that
are
goes
still fighting against it and resisting it,
Yeah.
a lot of that
but you put
is
things in
put down
symbols.
to cultural proficiency and your
Yeah,
cultural
there you go.
understanding, but also cultural humility, because you can learn a lot from different cultures and the way that they
A
do
hundred
things.
percent,
And that is
a
a
hundred
way that
percent.
we are able to break this cycle. I really
Mm-hmm.
do feel that we are able to. So sorry to cut you in there. I could speak to you
No.
all
Ah.
night and all
All night,
day.
huh?
But I'm gonna ask
Yeah.
you all to leave our viewers and listeners with ways they can get in touch with you to deepen these
Hmm.
discussions, should they want to get in
Yes.
touch with you all. So I'm going to ask Dr. Corey, how can people get in touch with you? What's your next upcoming projects?
So I'm trying to pull up the name of my Twitter handle. All right. The way anyone can get in contact with me and further these discussions is by finding me on Twitter. And my Twitter handle is at Beanstock, Beanz, Stock, Stock. And my next project, I'm actually in the middle of starting a podcast with me and a few friends from back home in California. And on there, we're going to be talking about everything from mental health to sports to relationships to brotherhood, all
Amazing.
type of things. And I look forward to, collaborating with all of you guys in the near future as well.
It's
Because
Mm.
all
I
about
definitely think
collaboration.
that's all it's about. It's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Hmm.
Go
So I
together.
definitely think
Come
that's
on.
something that we got to do. So that's where you
Yes.
guys
Absolutely.
can find me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr.
Yeah.
Corey.
Okay.
Dennis,
Okay.
where can people find you? What's your upcoming
All right.
projects?
All right. People can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at the gym guy PT. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you search at the gym guy, as soon as you start typing in the gym guy, I will come up.
Yep, he definitely
So people
will.
can find me. Yeah. Now, where can be my next project? So I'm working. See, we're constantly doing projects with Manhood Academy Global. I'm one of my next projects in the next few months. I'm working on relocating or going back to Uganda. Me and my queen
Yeah.
are working on
Okay.
going back to Uganda. I want to set up business over there, but one thing that I want to do is we want to do is uh, build orphanages, hospitals,
Mm.
schools, help to repair roads, um, running water,
Mm,
electricity, or just even support already existing orphanages and schools, and kind of basically use the information and the knowledge that I've gathered over the 30 plus years of living in the in the West, and use that, take that back home to build where we come from.
mm,
There's a lot of young black people that lose their lives every day trying to escape Africa to come to the West, and this, that, and the other, because they feel that there's no options back home. So it's creating those options back
yeah.
home so that our people don't feel that they need to leave where they are and go somewhere else and go to a foreign land and give the best years of their life, and
Hmm.
to a community and a society that doesn't appreciate them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about rebuilding. It's going following on from what Marcus Garvey started in the 1920s, and things like that, and just yeah, just going back home,
Amazing.
leaving these shows and going back home and developing that. So yeah. So one last thing, another thing that we use at Manhood Academy as well is, especially when it comes to men, um, there's a saying that goes, "Heal the boy, and the man will appear." Right? Heal the boy, and the man will appear. So yeah. So I
We'll
leave you
get to
guys with that.
healing.
Mhm.
We're getting
Let's
to
start that healing.
healing.
Hmm.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And who knows, there could be scope for collaboration between yourself and Martin as a fellow Ugandan.
Even Corey,
Yes.
yes, everyone.
And
Listen, we're
Corey.
open to
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
Let's
Absolutely.
use everything that we have. There's a reason why. There's a reason why some of us were born in the West. There's a reason why some of
Yeah.
us traveled
Yeah.
to the West and lived in the West.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, people lived. The white man lived amongst black people. Studied us for centuries and centuries. You
Mm,
know, So there's a reason why we have found ourselves where we are, and we have knowledge and information that our people and our community need really badly. So
yeah. Let's
utilizing that,
impart this knowledge.
yeah,
Yep.
let's utilize that knowledge. Like Martin was saying, knowledge alone is nothing
Yeah.
unless we put
Absolutely.
it into practice.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
And Martin, where can people find you and what are your upcoming projects?
Well, I think I will also give you my social media handles. So my personal social media handles, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, all at Bakundana, Bakundana, on LinkedIn,
Wonderful.
on Twitter, and on Instagram. But you can also reach
Great.
me on my organizational handle at Lem Mindfulness. So that's my organization.
Hmm.
And we've been doing amazing work. The whole of this week, we've been at a university back home in Uganda talking to young people. I think more than 10,000 young people that we've been speaking to
Mm.
about mental health.
Mm,
And the
Mhm.
response we are getting is amazing. It's just that personal. I'm not there physically, to be there and talk to them, but the response we are getting is amazing.
mm,
Um, tomorrow morning, which is for me a couple of hours away for because already it's morning for me. um, I'm hosting a Twitter space, and we are going to be discussing some of these issues. I'm
Amazing.
going to be hosting some prominent Ugandans, and they're going to be telling us about their life story and how they have navigated different challenges that from very humble beginnings to the achievements that they have made. So it's a space that I'm going to be hosting in the next couple of hours, and it's going to be massive.
Amazing.
And then lastly, what I want to say is that at my organization, we focus on three things: love, empathy, and mindfulness. And why we focus on those three things is because one, if you are to be able to give love, you have to first love yourself. There are many people in this world who don't have self-love. So we really preach self-love and then love for the community, like so that's the first thing. The second thing is empathy, and why we focus on empathy is because we are all going through different challenges, but we know we get judged before we are understood. So what we are preaching is let us first be understood before we can actually judge others. And then the last one is mindfulness. Of course, I'm sure all of you understand what mindfulness is, but the focus for that is that we encourage people to live in the present moment, acknowledging the past challenges that we have gone through, and also acknowledging that the future has its worries, but there's no point in worrying about the future. Rather, we focus on what we can control, and that is the present.
Amazing.
So that's what we advocate for as an organization. And I would encourage all of you to join us in this journey of advocacy on mental health, but we're also doing real impactful projects on the ground. And I'm looking forward to working with you, Dennis, when you come on the ground. And Dr. Corey as well. I'll probably be reaching out to you as well, because we are really trying as much as possible to spread this message. Thank you so much.
Amazing. And thank you all for your dedication to not only the work that you do with young people, your advocacy for Black lives, but also the activism, because it is exactly that. You are all active in what you're doing. So thank you all. And it's been an amazing conversation. I could literally speak to you all for hours. So whoever's listening, whatever country you are in, whatever time it is, thank you for listening. This is Rhianna from Black Mental Health Matters, along with Martin, Dr. Corey, and Dennis, wishing you a beautiful and blessed day. Take care. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Bye.